Tadasana. Big toes to touch, heels slightly apart. Lift all 10 of your toes and truly spread them. Replant them onto the earth and distribute the weight amongst the four corners of both feet. Try not to default to your pattern and see if you can stay in equal standing. Keep the actioning of your inner ankles back and your arches lifting, and keep your outer ankles firming into the midline and down. Bring your attention to the backs of your knees and keep them softly bent, probably not visual for most of us. As you travel your attention now to the pelvis, see if you can create neutrality by gently lengthening your tailbone to your heels and feeling the subtle lift of the front of your pelvis to your heart. Travel your attention up to your shoulders and take the head of your upper arms gently back in space so they align with the sides of your rib cage. From deep in your shoulders, straighten your arms and spin, pinkies in, thumbs out. Feel a broadness across the front of your chest as your shoulder blades flatten and adhere to your back body. Your skull is directly over the basin of the pelvis with your chin leveled, gaze straight ahead, and a soft, one-pointed focus. Tadasana. Transitioning from flat back to high push-up. At the top of your mat, inhale to flat back. Feel the length on the front of your spine by pulling your sternum away from your navel. Feel the space between your shoulders and the back of your heart soften into the midline. At the effect of that, feel your collarbone spreading east to west. Spine is lengthening north to south. Keep the neck long, gaze down. Take your final breath in length, and on exhale with one foot only, place your fingertips beside your toes, step back to a one-legged high push-up. Keep your shoulders over your wrists, soften your hips in line with your shoulders. Take a full breath, and on exhale, opposite foot, high push-up. Make sure you're on the balls of your feet with your heels driving back. Pull your sternum away from your navel, lengthening your front spine. Feel the subtlety of tailbone to heels with the front of your pelvis lifting to your heart. Right between your shoulders is soft, collarbone still spreading east to west. Keep the neck long with your gaze down. High push-up. Chaturanga. High push-up. Stack shoulders, elbows, and wrists with your wrist crease parallel to the front edge of the mat. Keep a subtle softness in your elbow joints and action your inner upper arms to the front of the room as you firm your outer upper arms into the midline of your body. You're on the balls of your feet with your heels driving back strongly. Away from that, pull your sternum forward, lengthening your front spine. Keep that gentle lengthening of tailbone to heels, and at the effects of that, the front of the pelvis lifts to the heart. Keep the neck long and the back of your head the highest point in the pose, with your vision down between your hands. Softening the space between your shoulders into the front body and spreading your collarbones east to west. Inhale, lift your gaze as if your vision was in your chest. Pressing off the balls of your feet, come forward halfway down, shoulders never lower than elbows. Keep your elbows over your wrists and your inner knuckles firm. Tailbone is still lengthening to heels, front of the pelvis lifting to heart. Still on the balls of your feet, heels back. Pressing off the balls of your feet, inhale to an upward facing dog. Toes extend straight back from the heels. Feel the actioning of your inner thighs up and keep your tailbone lengthening down. Shoulders, elbows, and wrists still stacking, keeping that subtle softness in your elbows. Take the head of your upper arms back in space and feel the broadness east to west in your chest. Take a final draw and moving from the pelvis, downward facing dog, your head is last, your gaze lands. Make sure that your shoulders, elbows, and wrists are in the same trajectory. If not, wrists slightly wider than shoulders. Wrist crease parallel to the front edge of the mat and index fingers parallel to one another. Softness in your elbow joints and action your inner upper arms to the front of the room and firm your outer upper arms into the midline of your body. Notice how that may lift and pucker your inner knuckles and then refirm them. Downward facing, feet parallel, hips with distance, if not feet slightly wider than your hips. You're much more interested in length in your low spine in this pose than you are length in your hamstrings. So if you don't feel length in your low spine, make sure that you walk your stance slightly shorter by 1 inch, 2, maybe 3. Still on the balls of your feet. Inner upper thighs rotate strongly to the back of the room, and against that, keep your outer ankles firm to the midline. Press your arm bones down and action biceps forward. Press your thigh bones back and action inner upper thigh bones back. Let the opposition and actioning of arms and legs away from each other be the very principle that beckons the space in downward facing. Cat and cow. Stack your shoulders over your wrists and your hips over your knees. Make sure your wrist crease is parallel to the front of your mat and your index fingers parallel to one another. Initiating movement from your pelvis. On your inhale, lift your tailbone up to the sky, and eventually that movement courses through your spine, lifting your chest and spreading your collarbones east to west. As you exhale from the pelvis, your tailbone rounds, and eventually your upper thoracic lifts, chin in, Uddiyana, and span your upper back. Continue to move over the course of your breath cycles. Inhale, expanding the front line, and exhale, opening the back line. Consider as you move that the back of your neck and your low spine, they're two very flexible areas of your spine. So instead of overindulging in movement there, see if you can find some articulation in your thoracic rib cage spine, the very front and back of your heart.